Right, it's never dull supporting Celtic, is it, guys? We've always got talking points when we come to do these chats. So much off the field stuff happening at the moment. I feel like we covered that quite extensively on the channel on Monday. So we're going to turn to on the pitch stuff today, have a wee chat about the weekend win over St Johnstone and what we think maybe to come in the coming weeks. It is another win in a row, Jackie. It's 4 wins in a row now. Probably wasn't the best game to judge the team on in terms of the way they performed, but I suppose it was chalking off another victory.
Yeah, I think that's obviously the main thing is getting the 3 points. But it was always going to be a tough match. Always is a tough match going to St Johnstone. Pitch, looks a bit bobbly and stuff like that, which slows the game down. Not to give them any excuses, but it is a factor in the performance at times there when it's slow and it suits opposition more. When it's not free flowing and crisp, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But the important thing is they got the win, 2 quick goals again, which sealed the game. Yeah,
were you fearing the worst again, Jackie, when St Johnstone scored, as we all were, probably?
No, I thought they were on top without doing that last little bit, that last little killer pass or the cross. They were just back in numbers, and it suits teams. You're getting your breaking on them, or they get back well in numbers and in their lines. And as I said, like most teams are playing against us now, they play narrow, so you have to get in and sure behold the 2 goals came from balls coming back the way. Christie's one across. Then Greg gets one across back and takes his touch and finishes it. So it's so important to do more of that.
Yeah, it was funny. Ryan Christie's game, I thought, kind of summed up the best and worst attributes from him. I thought, sometimes fans get frustrated with the amount of long shots he takes, but those 2 moments of quality kind of... Were you surprised when he was named in the lineup instead of Ajeti?
Possibly, yeah, just because... I thought that Neil was trying to get a bit of consistency in the team and keep the same team and kind of build, and especially when he's not changing the other ones. Like I said, I thought Sorrow might have got an opportunity again. I know last week it was because he had a bump or something before he went into training and he wasn't sure about playing him. But, I thought he might have started with the same kind of personnel. I know young Welsh got injured and Duffy's came into the back line, but apart from that, it was kind of similar.
Yeah, Hamish, you've spoken a lot about Ryan Christie on the channel, haven't you? You're not a huge fan of Ryan Christie.
He just frustrates me because the thing about Ryan Christie is that he's clearly a talented player. Some of the goals he scores and some of the bits of play he produces, he's clearly talented. But there just never seems to be any thinking with, joined up thinking with the way he plays the game. Everything he does is just so erratic. He never... takes a second to realise where he is on the pitch or what he can do next. And when you compare him to someone like David Turnbull, who's come into the first team, I just think it's night and day between those two, and I really don't think it should be. If anything, Ryan Christie should be the player that's light years ahead of Turnbull at the moment, given that he's a few years older. And I just think Turnbull and even Stuart Armstrong before him had a poise to their play that Christie really doesn't. And I can take someone being a poor footballer and just not being good enough for Celtic, but when I see a player who's clearly talented and it just hasn't all been put together, and I don't know whether that's down to Christie or whether he's not been coached right. For example, I think under Brendan Rodgers he would have been a brilliant player had Rodgers stayed on a bit longer and brought Christie forward. But I just find the whole Christie thing quite frustrating, and I've spoken about this before. If he moved on in the summer, I'd say thank you, and I'd be happy to move on ourselves and replace him. But we've spoken about this before. Like, I think there's a lot of players in that team that are good players, but they're just not being coached. And I thought it was a tough watch again against St Johnstone. I'm really struggling. I think we all are at the moment. The games are just tough watches. Like, we maybe get the result in the end, but we're not enjoying watching Celtic at the moment, are we, Jackie?
No, I understand what you're saying, and it's at times there you're putting the game on to watch it, but you're not expecting, free flowing football. You're not expecting there, but there's different reasons for that. One, the opposition, you have to go and beat them first and foremost by showing more energy, more desire, more fight than they do. Then the ability comes after that. Go back to your point with Christie. I agree with you. Sometimes you can be a bit frustrating. It's, again, similar to Rogic, it's trying to find the right position in the team or in a system. The thing with Tumble just now, I think he's making more decisions. His decision making is a lot better than Christie's. When Christie maybe went to link or something, maybe a shot that that's maybe not on. He's not set up right for the shot, and it comes off and goes away miles away. Or he has got the ability. We've seen that in the cup final and other games that he can curl balls in a bit like Rogic. Getting his goal last week against St Mirren, and it's these players are all quite similar in the way they play and where they play. So if you're playing in a system, it's more the player than the system at the moment. In some cases, you're putting players in to try and fit them into a shape and a system you want to play, and they're the kind of players that need a freedom as well to go and express themselves and go and create. Rogic, Christie, Tumble to an extent, but he can also fit in. I think. McGregor can adapt. Callum's probably the best in there that can adapt to different positions in whatever system the team's playing, whereas I don't think other players can. And I think that's been the difference.
Yeah, you could say the same for El Yunusi. We've not found out his best position this season. He was playing up top at the start of the season, then he was suddenly out the team, and then he was on the left of a three behind the striker. So it's just frustrating because these are clearly good players, and I know we've won the last 4 games, so maybe I'm being really overly negative, but I'm not enjoying watching Celtic, and I can't remember the last time I did enjoy watching Celtic, John.
Yeah, I mean, we've been through periods like this even in successful seasons. Not every game's going to be a barn burner, and right now the team are trying to get back to some sort of consistent winning form. I'm less concerned about the performances and just more concerned about what's coming ahead. Now, Edouard was fantastic against St Johnstone again, scores his double, but I just feel like, the reason we won that game was, individual bit of magics, really. And there's perhaps, again, an over-reliance on Edouard. And as everyone probably accepts, Edouard's probably going to leave in the summer. Jackie, do you think the club have done enough to kind of transition away from Edouard? Because we don't know anything about Ayeti, Klimala, even Griffiths. There's question marks over him at the moment. The club don't really have a replacement lined up, do they?
Well, that has to be seen if they can step in and carry that burden or the expectation that comes with being the top striker at Celtic. When Dembele left, when he's worried about is Edouard ready, and he's shown through time. I thought yesterday's game, I thought the St Johnstone game, he was quiet, and I thought he gave the ball away quite a lot, but he gets his goals. He comes off into that number 10 role a lot. He's back to goal and not knowing what's around him, and it was a bit frustrating watching it at the start. It was breaking down. We're getting up to the edge of the 18-yard box into his feet, and some balls drilled into him that he would normally take. I remember when, especially Christie fired one into him at the edge of the box and went kind of through him with a chance to go and break. But there is a lot of pressure on him, and that's when you were hoping that when Griffiths came in, they would help alongside him, or Jetty, Kamala. But I'm not sure if they can, come forward next year and be the main strikers. And that's, I don't know when we'll get opportunity to see them. Once the league's finished, we give them games before the end of the season to see if they can handle it. But then it's not quite the same either, because it's not the same pressure, to handle it. And the other bit is the fans. The fans are not there. Some players can handle. A lot of players that you watch us now in all the games, they can handle the pressure because there's no pressure at the games. It's after the event they're dealing with. But when you put a few thousand people there and there's a noise there, some of them can be found missing. So there's a lot of questions to be asked in the forward department. just now, I'm not sure that the other three lads can handle the pressure that going scoring 20 plus. We know Griffiths can finish, but you know the inconsistencies we leave, you know, throughout the season with fitness and different other things. That's what they'll need to decide for next year, if you can go and you know, get yourself in top shape and consistently in the team.
I mean, Yeti, Hamish, I mean, I've got a feeling, as Jackie's saying there, of the strikers there, he's perhaps the one that could come alive with crowds back in the stadium. I've just got that feeling. Like, he performed well for Basel a few years ago, and they've got a passionate support. So I could see him coming alive. But again, it's just the question marks. It's the uneasiness of going into next season without really a number one striker that's hurting me at the moment.
Yeah, I think Ayeti could be a good player. I think we saw enough in that initial burst when he came to the club, when he scored those 5 goals in 6 games or whatever. He looked like a really good signing at that stage. But if you're asking me whether he's a replacement for Edouard, not a chance. I don't think he's nearly of the same level or same class as Edouard. I think you could look at Ayeti as a possible Griffiths replacement for, you know, next season, maybe if Griffiths isn't at the club. Klimala is decent, but he's so raw, and again, he's just never going to be as good as Edouard. That's just a plain fact. He's raw. Even if he comes on to a game, he could be a good striker for us, but he's not going to have the same ability that Edouard had in Europe and all that kind of stuff. So I think we need to go out and sign an Edouard replacement. But how much is that going to cost? I mean, Edouard cost us £9 million. Dembele, I think, was a Brendan Rodgers. The lure of Brendan Rodgers brought him to the club. I don't think we would have got him otherwise, but he was, I think, quite cheap from Fulham, wasn't he? A compensation type fee. So maybe we could look at that. Ivan Toney, who's tearing up the English Championship, looked like an ideal player. He could have been an Edouard replacement. He looks to have that quality. So there are players out there, but do I have the faith in the current recruitment team to sign the next Edouard? I probably don't. But
I mean, what Jackie puts costing £9-10 million to replace an Edouard, do you think?
Possibly. I think you have to replace him with something that you actually need. You know, if you go and take the 3 strikers there, and I think what the team's needing just now, when teams are sitting in, is somebody with real strength and power that can hold defenders off and bring people into play. Because when you've got midfielders that are willing to go beyond you, like Turnbull or Christie or Rogic that we've got just now, it's so important that ball sticks there with the front man. And Kamala looks like he's more, you know, wants to run into space.
Yeah.
Ajeti doesn't look that he can hold the ball up when he's back to goal. He looks more like a penalty. He comes alive when the ball's in the penalty box and will react to things, a bit like Griffiths. You know, so it's something that they'll need to look at with a bit of physical presence as well. Something that can, you know, as I said, I played with some good strikers in my time, like Big John, Hartson or Sutton or something like that, to complement Larson. You know, Larson had his movement and he was intelligent, but you have somebody else that would make the ball stick in certain games, especially, you know, if you want to do well in Europe as well, somebody that can handle the pin centre halves down, make the ball stick, and get the team up the park and get the team around it. I think that's something that I don't think we've had for a while. Dembele had a physical strength about him that he could hold certain, but not still. I still think we need something like that. You know, commanding big striker that can cause problems and help the team when under pressure.
But the Edouard we see nowadays is a much more polished version of the guy we signed 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, when he first came on loan, balls were bouncing off him. He was rusty. It's probably not until we signed him permanently for $9 million, and even then, I think maybe 6 months down the line before he really turned into the player we see today, and even over the last 18 months, he's turned into a better player. So it's difficult if we are going to sign a new striker for them to come in and have the burden straight away of being a new Edouard, because Edouard's the best striker we've probably had since Larson, so it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and they need time to adjust as well. Unfortunately, you don't get a lot of time to go and play a striker, 5 or 6 games to see how he handles it. if they don't score in the first 1 or 2, 3 games, the pressure's on them. And as we've seen with, a few of them, you've not been able to see how they could do over the last number of years. Nadir Shifsey, I had at United, who scored 20 odd goals for me. He should easily have been able to do it for Celtic. He had, a lot of things in the armoury. Where if you speak to Nadir, he'd probably say he didn't have enough opportunities at the club. He was suspended when he first came and get put into the European games. So it's fine that time. Bio, likewise, he's away on loan and he's scoring there. Sved, I think Sved's played 1-2 games for the club. We don't know if he's good enough. Bio, don't know. Bio showed signs of a different side. It would go in behind. He would hang in the air. He was good in the air for crosses. It was a different kind of striker. But they don't get a lot of games to prove that they can handle playing for the club, and that's and not just strikers, any position. If you don't get opportunity, a run of games, and somebody to believe in you, it's very difficult to break into the side and stay in there and grow with the team.
I mean, as we know, I think it's well regarded that Brendan Rodgers and Celtic probably wanted to keep Moussa Dembele for an extra season, and then ultimately Dembele kind of forces his way out at the end of the transfer window. I think at that point, even though it was probably a little bit early for Edouard to become the main striker, as Hamish said, but you got the impression that Edouard was always there to kind of build towards being Dembele's replacement. And I just don't think we've done that this time. And I mean, if you look at Edouard's first season, he played 29 games, he scored 11 goals. He started 13 times, which is a fair amount of football for a loanee. And clearly they always had a view to sign him on a permanent basis. And I just don't. I mean, Ayeti's had problems with fitness. Kamala's had his problems, but I just don't think we've done enough work on the strikers that we've got at the club currently to kind of hit the ground running and replace Edouard. But that's just the way I see it. So I could see us going into the market, but with the interim results as we saw today, how much of the money that's going to be made on selling some of the players at the club, making up for the shortfall of this season, and how much is going to be available to spend on new players is something that we're going to have to see. Just quick thoughts on interim results, Jackie. Were you concerned about what you thought if you've seen them?
I wasn't a great surprise considering everything that's happened in the last year. On and off the park. I think it was always going to be. Last season, I think everybody was happy that we managed to keep a hold of the players that we did. In hindsight, throughout the season, you'll see about the players wanting to leave and keeping them. And the club can only keep them for so long. This year they have to. Yeah, I think they'll rake in quite a few with players that won't re-sign. The players that won't re-sign will have to go in the summer. Would it be Ayer, Edouard, Christie, Griffiths. So that there's, it's going to be I think it'll be a major rebuild, but it's just when they start the rebuild, with everything. I don't think anything will happen until the league's officially over. I think a lot of things will come after that, and a lot of questions will be answered after that once the league's officially done.
Hamish, the problems on Don Mackay's desk are just growing and growing by the day.
It's going to be crazy. See those 2 weeks when he comes in, 1st of July, I think our first qualifier. I kind of misspoke last week. I think it's a couple of weeks earlier actually. We're looking around the 20th of July for our first qualifier. So that 3 week period, when you consider he's got to come in theory, probably appoint a new manager, maybe a director of football, maybe sort all the recruitment, players leaving, players coming in. It's going to be a crazy few weeks.
I think Jackie's right. I think, once the league is over definitively, the club might move into action. There are reports that we've kind of tasked the recruitment agency to find a new director of football. So I think that's ongoing. And then once that comes in, that'll probably happen before the end of the season, I would imagine. And then we'll take things from here. But it's just a time of rebuild and it's going to be crazy.
Indeed, but 67 Hail Hail will be with you the whole way. Us three will be chatting about all the fun stuff going on at the club. Thanks very much for your time, guys. Thanks very much for watching this video, and we'll speak to you soon.